What's up, people? How are you today? The subject is ancient Egypt, and we're just gonna get right into it. So, we last left off talking about Pharaoh Ramses. According to records, there's more than one Ramses. So, a lot of people were confused. A lot of people didn't realize that. And they assumed that the first Ramses, the only Ramses, was the Ramses in the Exodus. But there were at least two other Ramses before this one. So no, it wasn't the Ramses, like Ramses the Great. It wasn't him. It was a later Ramses. And the only clue they had was the structures he had built bearing his name in his honor. Other than that, didn't really mention him by name. It mentioned him by Pharaoh Ramses, which Pharaoh is is not what you think, according to Professor Breyer. But let's get into it.
So, that phrase, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, very Egyptian. Very Egyptian. The Egyptians believed you thought with your heart. Because when you get excited, of course, it's your heart that beats quickly, not your brain. And the heart was viewed as the seat of all emotions. So Pharaoh's heart was hardened. That's a nice detail. I like that. I'll tell you one other thing that I sort of liked. The serpent trick. The old serpent trick. I wondered about that. I've wondered about that for years. And about 5 years ago, I was in Egypt. And I decided to see if I could find a snake charmer. There's still snake charmers in Egypt. It's a wonderful thing. I wanted to see if I could find a snake charmer who could do it. I figured if Pharaoh's men aren't impressed, it's got to be a trick that people know. Found a snake charmer in the south of Egypt who worked with cobras. Now, I don't know if these were poisonous or not, if they had been defanged or what, but they were cobras. There's no question about that. And I said, hey, can you do this? Can you make your cobra look like a staff? And he did it. It was not exactly as in the Bible, but I was impressed. He took this cobra and he holds it up in his hand, and his cobra's kind of wiggling around, kind of wriggling a lot. And all of a sudden, the cobra goes rigid. And it looks like the top of the cobra's head is the top of a walking stick. And you've got this guy holding what looks like a staff with the head carved like a cobra. And then he throws it on the ground, and it wriggles away. That's pretty good. I mean, sure, it's pressure on nerves. He's probably squeezing the poor thing to death, who knows what. But this cobra looked like a staff. Then he did something that really blew me away. I hadn't asked him. I didn't know it was coming. It was had this standard magic trick, I guess he did. He took the cobra, and he tied it in a knot, and he put it on top of his head, so that you had the cobra's head kind of pointing out towards you from him. And you know what it looked like? Remember that the sign of the pharaoh was the uraeus, the cobra, on the forehead? That's what it looked like. And, I mean, he had no idea that this went back to ancient Egypt, but it certainly looked like that he had a crown with a cobra coming out of it. So, even this serpent trick, there's still some traces of it in Egypt. Now, what about his name, Moses? Remember I said we talk about Moses? It is not reasonable to think that a princess, an Egyptian princess, is going to pick a kid out of the water and then start speaking Hebrew and give him an Egyptian name, Moses. No. That's a bad etymology. It doesn't work. Moses is a purely Egyptian name. It means birth. And it makes sense given that she's got this kid now, a new kid. It's like her birth. She calls him Moses. Moses is pure Egyptian. For example, Ramses' name is really Ra-Moses. Ra is born. The pharaoh Thutmose III, our great warrior. It means Thoth, the ibis-headed god, is born. Thoth Moses. So this is a purely Egyptian name, And it makes more sense when you look at it from an Egyptological standpoint than just biblical that, oh, it's a Hebrew word. No. So that's pretty good too. Now, that's a lot of internal stuff. What about external stuff? Is there any way we could find evidence for this exodus? Well, as I said, the Delta's pretty good. Ramses' capital, Ramses the Great, and I'm going to suggest that he might be the pharaoh of the Exodus. They did build a city of Ramses and Pitum. His capital was in the Delta. He built these big cities. So it's starting to look like there's some bit of historicity to this story. Also, let me tell you about a papyrus that's in the Leiden Museum. It's got just one sentence that's important, but it's a really good sentence for us. Here's what it says. It's instructions for workers, for overseers of the workers, and it says, distribute grain rations to the soldiers and to the Apiru to transport stones to the great pylon of Ramses. Now, Ramses' city was being built also, not just a store city, you got temples, and it says soldiers and Apiru. Sounds very much like Hebrew, and many people think that the Hapiru, who were a Bedouin in the north, that these may be the Hebrews. So we have a suggestion that this may be our Israelites, may be in Egypt. Now, there's one more bit that's really the cornerstone. It's called the Merneptah Stela. Now remember, Ramses' firstborn son, Amenhotep, he died before he became pharaoh. It's the 13th son, and we're going to talk a lot about him next time. It's the 13th son, Merneptah, who becomes king. In the 5th year of his reign, he erects...
So, the 13th son, what the heck? 13th son, oh my God, somebody was getting it in. 13 kids? Wow, not the first, second, or the third, but the 13th son that takes over the family business. Okay, you guys, this one's going to be short today, but we'll be back to finish this off. Talk to you next time.